Hi everyone, we are going to go through how to make a flat bow today. Now a flat bow is different than a pom-pom bow, so I have a video for a pom-pom bow as well, in that the loops and the technique is very, very similar, but the pom-pom bow has all the same size loops and we make it into a nice round shape. The flat bow has loops that are getting shorter in size, and they layer really nicely over the top of one another. They work great for wreaths. They work great for something that you're going to hang against a flat setting like a wall. Pom-pom bows I find look a lot nicer when you're putting them on things like trees, things that you're going to see in the round. So without any further ado, we have our ribbon. This is a 1.5 inch. I like a 2 inch. That's probably my sweet spot. That's the best. Something like this one, it's a little bit thicker. Just a personal preference. It makes it easier in terms of the fullness, less loops. And this one is actually fairly evenly same-sided, but something like this, I use this one on Halloween. And this one has really nice shiny side. It's a little hard to see sometimes in the video, but it is a duller backside. So things like prints. So this technique works really, really well, particularly for things that have one side to them. Okay, we've got our wire ribbon. And again, wire, because it holds its shape a lot better. It's a lot more forgiving. You can use without wire, but I certainly suggest, there's a lot of wire options out there. Finding one that has wire, it will make your life a lot easier. We have our floral wire, which is, this one I believe is 18. 20 works fine as well. I have my Leatherman, which is super, super helpful for everything we're going to do, and I use it for a lot of other projects. The Wingman I will post in the comments. The juice is no longer offered, which is super, super sad, but the Wingman is a really, really good alternative. And scissors. Okay, so I'm going to start out again. First thing we always do when we do any type of bow is we get our tail out of the way first. I want to make sure that I always have the tail at the end. We can make adjustments to the size of our bow and our loops, but if we don't have a tail at the end, that's really, really not going to work. So I'm pulling out here maybe 18 inches. And I actually can tell because this wire is about 18. Yep. And so we're going to cut. And we'll set that aside. Okay. I like to work off of the spool. Some people pull things off the spool to start with. I find that because I don't know exactly how much I'm going to use until I get to the end of it, keeping it on here makes it really easy to just put it away when I'm done and start with the next bow the next time. So as we start off with any of these wire bows, we pinch and we make a little twist. This lovely little twist serves a few purposes. One, it tells us where our middle point is, where our center point is. And two, it makes it a lot easier to kind of hold everything together. It helps in terms of, especially this is a little bit more slippery, so I want to make sure that I have a good handle on it. And so it's a good way to kind of hold on to it. Okay, so first thing, we make our first loop. This is really important. This is going to tell us what our width of our bow is going to look like. So if I can imagine, here's my center and how wide I want it. Let's make it just a little bit smaller. This is thinner, so I either have to make more loops or I have to make it a little bit smaller so it looks full. And so I'm going to make it a little bit smaller, so that's fine. Put these outside and look at it again. Make sure that it's the right size, and I'm going to give it a little twist. And again, make sure that I'm still lined up over my center so they're all lined up together. And we're going to move to the next one. And something you'll notice that we're going to constantly keep doing is we're going to keep adjusting and moving this bad boy out of the way. And let's look at these. And this is, again, our opportunity to make sure that we have these symmetrical. I've been doing this a long time, so I eyeball it. I did bring out my ruler today. I didn't do it for my other video. But if you do want to kind of measure it, and so let's see. I'm looking at something that's about 5 inches. And so let's say this one's about 5 inches on this side too. All right, so I eyeballed that pretty well. Gonna make my twist. And now I have my first 2 loops, which kind of are the guiding loops for what I'm looking to do here. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and make 2 more loops on each side. So far, this looks very, very much like the pom-pom bow that we normally do, that I traditionally do a lot of. And let's see if we can get these done. Let's see. The difference is going to come when we start getting into our 4th and 5th loops, because we're going to make something that is smaller, that layers nicely over the top of this. And let's move our ribbon here. Okay. And I now have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. I have 3 loops. They're fairly even on each side. Now, here's where we get to the layering. And I'm going to move this around here a little bit. There you go. Okay. So, one of the things that we don't do when we do our pom-pom bow is we don't really start shaping this until the end, because everything is the same size. We're doing something a little different with this one. We're actually going to start shaping it a little bit up front. And the reason we do that is because it is really important to be able to see where you may want to add extra loops. I'm still going to try to do 3, 2, and 1. It's kind of like a pyramid. So 3 on the back layer, 2 in the middle layer right above it, and then that 1 loop in the center. Or 1 loop maybe even on the sides. We'll see what it looks like. But this one I actually start to look at as I'm putting it together. So far we can see what it looks like here. There definitely is extra spacing here because this is definitely a thinner ribbon, but that's okay. So now when I go to my next layer, and there is no mathematical equation for what this size is. It's really eyeballing it and seeing what looks good to you. But it is a smaller loop. I want to layer it in front, and it's going to be sitting in between these 2 loops. So that looks pretty good. And this stuff is really slippery, but that's okay. We're going to go to our other side. We're going to try to line something up similar size-wise so that it's even. So we look at it here. And once you have kind of that size, we can kind of go back to where it's centered for now, and then I'll space it out. Do it one more time. And let's do our last one. Okay. That's about right. All right. So now, pull that one a little bit further. Again, this is the opportunity as you lay out each one of these to pull and push and make adjustments to them. So now that I'm done, and yes, my fingers are hurting. I haven't done these in a while, but this is also a little bit more of a challenge when you have something that's slippery. It's also a little more of a challenge when you're doing the flat ones, because you want to really kind of start pulling things around and they're not feeling as centered as the other one. But so as I start pulling this and shaping it, I can start seeing if I want to try to put an extra loop in here before I put my center in here, or if I think it's going to be enough. If this is a really large bow and I have something that's thinner like this, it's 1.5 inches, not like a 2 inch, I may actually go ahead and put 4 loops in the back and put 3, and then I have to make 2. It really is up to the size and how you play with it. So if we're looking here, this isn't too bad. That's actually pretty good. So let's see what it looks like if I just put my center here. I'm just going to play with it for a second. It actually is not too bad. If I put another loop in here, it kind of looks a little funny. Kind of pops up too much. All right, so we are going to do the traditional. Whoops, I'm losing my camera here. We're going to do the traditional 3, 2, and a center one. So that last center one, if you see my thumb here, is going to loop over the top of my thumb, and we're going to hold it to the back. So it's my center little loop. Doesn't have to be very big. Which again, like I said, is different than the pom-pom because that would be an even size. This one is truly a smaller little, nice little like center knot, so to speak. Like if you're tying your shoes, that little knot. And so it will pop up nicely when we're done. That's about right. All right, so we have now finished creating the loops. I'm going to go ahead and give this a cut. I can leave a little bit of tail here. That's perfectly fine. That will get hidden underneath nicely when we kind of tidy everything up. Okay, I'm going to take 1 second here. Whew, shake out my hand. So hold it with my other hand. If you need to take a break in the middle of this, if you have like a really nice, tough chip clip, or if you got like a clothespin, that could work. But otherwise, you're going to have to kind of work your way through it. It's a little tough. Okay, now I have my wire. So I'm going to insert this through the center of my lovely little loop. And I want to do it about halfway. So I've got halfway wire on each side. Okay. Now I'm going to snug it underneath my thumb. So my thumb is actually holding it in place. And right now I'm going to move my fingers so they're about at each side of what's going to happen when I pull this back. I'm going to pull this back in both directions. And I'm going to move my thumbs and fingers to support this at the back. Okay. Now this is 18 gauge, which is pretty darn thick. So I can give it a little bit of twist with my fingers, but my fingers aren't really that strong. So that is why we use our lovely Leatherman. Any other needle nose pliers will work as well. Pliers in general could work, but a needle nose is really, really the best because it really kind of gets you as tight as you can get here. And so I'm going to give this a really nice firm twist. A couple twists, actually. Now the goal here is to make sure that now I can let go of everything. This ribbon is really tightly secured in here. Let's get nice and close. To make sure that as I start to manipulate this and move things around to fluff it up, I'm not worried about everything moving and things getting shorter and things getting longer. I can kind of snug this little centerpiece in behind everything if I want to. And now I'm going to move this wire out of the way. Now I can go ahead and I can start shaping it. So we already did a little bit of shaping as we were starting out because we truly needed to make sure that we understood what size we were making. And this one needs a little bit of manipulation here to lay down. And remember, the goal in a flat bow is it is going to be laying against the back of something. And so I will lay this down on the table once we're done so you can actually see what it's going to look like against a backdrop of something. Let's move this one around and make this look nicer in the back. And again, the beauty of wire is there's flexibility. You can poof it up as much as you want. You can move it. And because I put this wire in here to hold everything together, I can manipulate this as much as I need to get the shape I'm looking for. It also is really nice because I tend to take mine outside, so they get really beaten up and I make a new bow every year. But if you're doing something that's indoors, there is no worry in trying to, they'll get flattened and smushed in a box. But next year, you can bring it back out again, fluff it up, you have a bow all ready to go. So we are pretty much done here. I'm going to lay this down and give you an overhead shot of kind of what we're looking at here. And so now you see that it's nice and flat. Everything lays here and it's got its nice flat layers. Again, when I actually get this on a wreath, I will again go ahead and just make some little adjustments here. But it's a nice layered bow that layers over the top. That lays down a little bit flatter. It looks a little bit more like a traditional bow. And that is the bow portion. Okay, now we've got one more piece. That lovely piece that we cut out ahead of time. So let's flip it over. And I'm going to find about the center. And now when I lay this on here, it's hard because the sheen on here is very similar. So the front and the back is pretty much the same thing. But if you're doing something that has a pattern, because I'm now at the back of the bow, I want to be looking at the back of my ribbon. The front side should be facing the front, right? So it should be facing this way so that when I look at it, it looks correct. If for whatever reason, when you tie this on, you had them flipped around, that's fine. Is wire, right, as I said, right? So you can manipulate it, kind of yank it back into the correct layout. However, if you do it the right way when you start out with, you have less manipulation. So make it a little easier. But yes, there's definitely a way to fix it. You don't have to take it out and start again. Okay, so I'm going to give it a twist. Nice tight twist. We're almost there. Okay. So now I have my bow, and again, I'm going to have to manipulate it again because that's the fun part about this one is it needs a little bit more love in TLC, but my tails. So I have tails on this, and we can finish this in 2 ways. So first thing, I cut this a little bit long. I want to be able to see with the full size of the bow to see how much I'm going to cut off. So I'm going to do, let's say we're going to go to about here. Okay. So I can cut this to make it even. I can line this up with the other side, give it a cut to make it even. So now we've lined them up together and they're nice and even. And the way we're going to finish this, we have 2 ways we can finish this. We have a V cut, which leaves you with 2 points. And we also have a slanted cut, which leaves you with a different look. But if we start out with this V cut, and so I'm going to take both of my sides, I'm going to put them together. And so when I make this cut, I'm going to cut at an angle, but it's going to give me a V when I finish. And I remember from last time, this is slippery fabric. There you go. All right. So it moves a little bit. Didn't give me as quite tight of a, there we go. Okay. So now I have my lovely 2 points, pardon me, for a lot of bows. This will look perfect, particularly for something that is really a very simple ribbon. Doesn't have any print on it. But what you can also do, so I'm going to do it on this side just to make it the same. Okay. So I could stop here and be done. Or I can change this and cut all the way through it. And make a nice point at the end. Either one is perfectly fine. So I say start out with this one. You can look at it and see if you like it. If you don't like it, you can go back and cut this one. And when you cut the second one, you want to cut, I'll show you. You want to cut so that your lovely points come down and lay really nicely together. So either way, personal preference of what you want to do. The one last thing that I always show everyone how to do, and it is a little challenge I've noticed the last time, and I did this with this particular ribbon. If your wire, sometimes it slides and you're able to actually get to the point. I'm going to grab something else that slides a bit better. This one in particular, the wire moves around here a lot. So I'm actually going to, so if I was doing an end with this, I would slide this ribbon down just a little bit to expose a little bit more of the metal. Give it a snip, and that way when you pull it back, this end no longer has a sharp point at the end. So if you have, particularly if you have a ribbon a bow that is going to be exposed to people, it's on a door, people are going to opening and shutting the door. So it's going to be accessible, highly accessible to people and in people's faces particularly. You want something that you've taken off the edges to, so you're not worried about having people poking themselves. A little bit safer, particularly around kids and adults. So, and that's that. All right, I will leave the original post. There's also a post that I did on this in the comments, as well as in the description, as well as links to all of the supplies I used. Thank you very much.